Two, one, and we're live. Gregory Natt, it's nice to have you here. How you
Well, it's
doing?
nice to be here.
How you doing today?
I'm feeling all right. It's a sunshiny day here in NorCal. Pandemic still raging. Um, Tension's still high out there. But I'm glad that at a time like this, we can still make some time for some good intellectual conversation.
Let's see. So you just got off of work. How was that?
I just got out of a meeting. It was good. I was just discussing a new client that I'm going to take on for all of you out there who don't know what I do. I am a behavioral interventionist. Basically means that I work with children with autism and I help them to learn and reduce maladaptive behaviors and just things like that. So yeah, taking on a new client. So I'm excited for that. That starts next week.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Did you graduate with a clinical psychology degree or general or cognitive?
Mine was I wanted to do, for those of you who don't know, went to Dominican University, graduated in 2020 with a Bachelor's of Science in Psychology. I wanted to do an emphasis in, I think it was cognitive psych, but I was already minoring in philosophy. And as a transfer, I didn't have the time to take on the cognitive psych minor or the clinical minor. I wouldn't have done the clinical. I wasn't really interested in the curriculum, but the cog sci one I was really interested in. So I took one class with that. And then to get the actual minor, I think I needed 2 more classes, but I still got to take, some pretty good classes. I will always regret not taking psychopharmacology without Sheen, because that's one of the holy grail psych classes at Dominican. And as someone who wants to go into neuropharmacology at some point, using neuromodulation techniques. I guess that's technically not pharmaceutical because it's not a drug, but at some point I do probably want to work in some type of pharmaceutical setting to affect people's mental state and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I didn't get to do the minor in cog.
Okay. Well, it sounds cool otherwise.
It is okay.
Still a bunch of interesting classes, and that's why I'm starting to do it too. Yeah. All right. Well, we might as well kick this off where we should have. So, our discussion is gonna take part in neuroplasticity, basically. That's what we're talking about today.
Yes.
So, specifically, we'll get into what TMS and you said TCDS.
TMS, TCDS, CES, DBS. Lots of
a bunch of acronyms in here. But so what this basically is what new psychological technology to help and change brain stimulation.
Yeah. So just a quick overview of what neuroplasticity is. Neuroplasticity is pretty much just how much your brain, the regions of your brain, communicate with each other. Your neurons, those are your brain cells, they communicate electrically. And so basically a child, for instance, they have a really high neuroplasticity. Child's brains are communicating everywhere, constantly. It's because they're learning a lot. They have a lot of, I think the term is neurogenesis going on. Lots of new connections forming because they need to, because they're children, and as they age, they have to learn things. Whereas later in life, for instance, you or I, or older adults, we ramp down in that neuroplasticity because we don't need as much opportunities to learn. We're already pretty nuanced in our learning. We're already pretty set, so to speak, in our ways, and so we don't need to have that high neuroplasticity. And so then this technology, it's relatively new. There's new technology coming out to enhance neuroplasticity. TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation, is pretty much like a if you've ever seen like an EEG, like it's pretty much kind of like a similar thing. I think I've seen it in different forms where they connect electrodes to your head, your scalp, and then they can, zap you in certain areas,
Right.
Excite certain neuron patches or inhibit certain patches to get a desired effect. I've also seen like this type of like, it's almost like a sponge looking thing. Like they can like put it, in different areas of your scalp and try to do the same thing, excite or inhibit patches. TCDS, transcranial direct stimulation, is more, how would you say, pinpoint,
Mm-hmm.
And then those are both non-invasive. So non-invasive stimulation is pretty much where they don't have to go inside your head.
Does that also mean that it's like non-permanent for when you're not using it? If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's exactly what it means. It's technically like non-permanent. The desired effect is to make it permanent, which is why they have to do it repetitively.
Right.
So kind of like therapy, you would go in for sessions, and then it's kind of like a supplementary tool. It's not like whereas if you take I don't know, like a certain drug that's supposed to like end your pain, right? Like ibuprofen, for instance. If you take ibuprofen, you're not supposed to feel pain. You don't need to continually take the ibuprofen, but like with this is more of like a supplementary tool, and you use it in addition to some other type of therapy, I'm assuming, to try to reduce your symptoms, if not get rid of them completely.
Okay.
But non-invasive. Sorry.
Said it's so interesting.
No, it is. Yeah. One of the reasons I got into it. It's in the future it'll be mind blowing. I think like you'll start
literally,
literally, figuratively. Yeah, you'll start seeing things that are just like, wow, I could have never imagined. Kind of like people before the telephone.
Oh yeah, I know.
But yeah, so then there's DBS, which is deep brain stimulation, and I'm a little less familiar with that, but I'm pretty sure that one's invasive. You have to do a surgery, put some type of device in the person's head, and then it zaps them.
See, that kind of freaks me out.
Right? Like, yeah. I feel like most people, they don't really take a liking to that one.
Right. It's like the amount of trust you would have to have with the person like working on your head, because that's literally the most like vital part of your body besides the heart. Mm-hmm. And it's just, ooh, I don't know. I couldn't imagine myself doing it, like someone cutting open like my head and like playing around with my brain. Ugh.
Literally, like it's kind of freaky. Like, I don't want that. Like, we're in the wrong spot.
Mm-hmm. I would have to have like numerous people go before me and not die.
Dying would definitely suck if you were trying to, get some, deep brain stimulation to fix, I don't know, like a slight tremor, and then you end up dying.
Oh my God, would you imagine? Whew.
I don't want it. But that one definitely, I think, as time goes on, people, that one's, I think, actually more used right now. It's older, I think, than TMS or TCDS. But I think as, the non-invasive stuff becomes more popular, we'll probably do away with things like deep brain stimulation.
Yeah. Is like, the invasive stuff, is that kind of the same type of technology that scientists use on like chimpanzees to basically like analyze what they're thinking and why? Like, I know there's a bunch of research. Yeah, it's like the same thing.
Same concept, same idea.
Okay, because that's always interesting too. Not that I know too much about it, but just from like hearing people talk about it and watching a couple shows, like they've never quite explained how it actually works, but it's always like, wow, you can actually tell what someone is thinking and what like neurons are firing and things like that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they just need it's just electrical signals, so they just need to like pick up on the signals and they turn it into something that they can understand, and you can pretty much tell a lot of things. You can tell. So like I work in a clinic, right, and we have EEG, and I was talking to the EEG check, and she was saying she can tell like certain things you're doing by just looking at your EEG reading, like just like a little blip. She can tell if you're like sleeping, if you blink, she can tell.
What?
Swear to God, she told me that if you blink, she can tell by the EEG. Like she said, it's like a yeah,
That's probably super reoccurring.
exactly,
Like the
yeah.
same thing over and over. Yeah.
So they just get really good at telling, you know, the reoccurring patterns. Like it's just a pattern, you know. If you can tell what the pattern is, you're like, oh, he's blinking, he's awake, like he's dreaming. You know, it's actually pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but so you know, on the topic of invasive, or I guess before I go into the next thing, like the last non-invasive thing that I know of is something we actually use in the clinic. It's called CES. This one, I don't want to get this wrong, but I think it's cranial electrotherapy stimulation. And that one, at least in the clinic I work at, it's pretty much like an earring. So we put this earring on you, and it zaps you like with electric charge, and it stimulates your vagus nerve. And I just took physiology, but I can't give a comprehensive definition of what the vagus nerve is. Basically, it taps into your parasympathetic, I want to say, nervous system, either parasympathetic or sympathetic. So parasympathetic is more inhibitory, whereas sympathetic is more excitatory. So I think it's parasympathetic, and pretty much it like taps into that and does things like causes like your gut to do its processes that it needs to do, digest, stuff like that. And so from what I've heard and been told, it seems to be like a regulatory thing, CES, helping with sleep, digestion, things like that. That one is also non-invasive. But you were saying how, and I'm sure a lot of people would express the same sentiments. You're saying how you wouldn't want to have, invasive surgery to have this stimulation done.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to get your opinion. I don't know if you've seen anything about, there's this company Neuralace, right? And there's also Elon Musk's Neuralink. And have you heard about this Neuralink or Neuralace?
I have heard and read up on some Neuralink, but not Neuralace.
Cool. Yeah. So Neuralace is pretty much the same concept. What do you know about Neuralink? Like, what have you heard?
From hearing Elon Musk talk about it and a little bit of his like company's introduction, whatever speech that he gave, he's just trying to create a chip, so to speak, that he would insert in your skull, and then there would be little like wires that connect to different parts of your brain depending on whatever you want fixed or whatever's wrong with it. And originally, like the first prototype, he's trying to get rid of any sort of like brain damage or brain disease, and like the wiring would connect and shoot off the neurons to which weren't like firing before. So it's basically stimulating the areas that were damaged in order to maintain like proper function that they used to have or whatever like that. And the coolest part that he was discussing was that this goes more than just the brain. It also, he was saying that it fixes like spinal injuries as well. And so people who are like paralyzed like get fixed. I don't know how it works, but they're able to not be paralyzed anymore. And I just think that's too cool.
Yeah, so that's pretty spot on. From my understanding in my one semester of taking physiology, a lot of your nerves are in your spine, in your brain. So nerves are just big bundles of neurons. So like a lot of those are in your spine. And so like the same kind of, logic works. Like if you could, zap the neurons in the brain to inhibit or excite, you could do the same thing for the spine. Like, why which is why he would be able to fix spinal cord injuries. But it's definitely Neuralink. I took a liking to it. I think it's super interesting, super difficult
Yes.
for sure.
Very intricate.
Yeah, I hope people understand. And he definitely tries to, help people to understand that this isn't something that's like coming next year. Like, it's pretty elaborate and intricate. Yeah. And so it's going to take a lot of clinical testing, before they, are mass producing chips to surgically implant in someone's head. It's gonna take some time. And so, you or me or nobody else needs to really worry that like when this comes, it'll be something that's like, oh my God, like, are we gonna have AI next? Like, are the robots coming? Like, it's not gonna be like that. It's gonna be pretty gradual transition, and I'm all for it. I think that's a great tool that could be used in the future. Because honestly, like as someone who wants to study neuroplasticity, and that's going to be like my focus for life, I can honestly say I think that the more people that are focusing on solutions to neurodegenerative diseases and neurodevelopmental disorders, the better. Because there's honestly, as I was talking with my physio professor, there's a lack of attention paid in the like, I don't know if I want to say the medical field or just healthcare, I guess, in general. Not enough talent is going into these areas and focusing on these topics, and so the more that we have people getting into the healthcare industry and focusing on these topics, the better. Lots of people are going into business. You're a business major yourself.
Yes. I was gonna say, do you have an idea why people aren't going into the business as much, like from the medical perspective? Or
I think that
is it just because it's hard?
Yeah, I mean,
it's a lot of time, and
it's a lot of time. When people go into college, I don't think most people are saying, oh, I want to do pre-med. And there are a decent amount of people saying I want to do pre-med, but there's also people not saying like I want to do fields like OT. For instance, like I'm someone who I did psych in undergrad, and I'm making the transition to OT to do an OT with a neuroscience emphasis, but not like that's a relatively unknown field, occupational therapy. Not enough people wanting to get into just the care of people with the disorders and diseases, autism, stroke, Parkinson's, dementia, schizophrenia, depression, anxiety. So I just say this, the people aren't, I would say maybe they're just not interested. You see tons of people getting into things like business, engineering, tech,
tech, big time. Computer science right now is just
computer science is huge. People are getting into computer science, and computer science is great. And I think that a lot of innovations are made. Elon just sent a rocket up to the International Space Station.
Dude, SpaceX, yes.
Big fan. Yeah, no, that's all.
I was gonna say, I didn't realize that they had, was it 3 like failed launches in the last 10 years?
Yeah, they had 3 failed launches before the 4th. He almost ran out of money, actually. That's a really interesting story.
I was just, I watched like a little documentary on him not that long ago, and I just didn't, there's so much more to Elon Musk than like what's portrayed now, at least from my generation and like our age, is that people didn't know him before Tesla and SpaceX. No. Like he has done so much and been so successful, but also like used his own money to create everything that he has.
Yeah, and I think that's a really big point to bring up, is that he has used a lot of his own money to fund these ventures. Most people probably don't know he was in what is termed now the PayPal Mafia. Yeah, the PayPal mafia, for all you people out there who don't know, Elon was like one of the founding members of PayPal.
Yeah.
And when that ended, like him and a bunch of other people went on to create a lot of the businesses, not a lot, but good amount of businesses nowadays. So for instance, Tesla, SpaceX, LinkedIn, YouTube, Yelp, that person in the PayPal mafia. Those are all people who used to work at PayPal. And that was where he made his actual second fortune. His first fortune was made in a company called Zip2.
Zip2.
Yeah, Zip2. And correct me if I'm wrong here. Zip2 was like it was like a mapping type of software.
Yes, it took businesses and basically put their website on the internet and like their location and information.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's not really like a specific app. Well, kind of like Yelp, I guess, but very new. It would be like a new Yelp that hasn't ever been innovated at all. I think that's what Zip2 was. But granted, it
Yeah.
got sold after like a couple years of him making it, so it got completely absorbed by another company.
Yeah, I mean, he made a lot of money from that, and so from them, he went into PayPal. That got sold or acquired, and made a bunch of money with that. And then he got to do what he really wanted to do, which was space exploration.
Yeah.
And then also the whole sustainable renewable energy with Tesla and all that.
And also with the whole sustainable renewable energy, he created Solar City as well.
Solar
So
City.
he was a big time advocate for just renewable energy. So he's a person who genuinely cares about the earth and environment and trying to that's his main mission statement essentially, is to just make earth better, more sustainable and livable in the future. And
Yeah.
I don't know, somebody with that kind of sight and forward thinking, and with his just photographic memory is what he wants to call it. He can achieve so much, dude. It's insane what he's been able to do already, and he's only 50.
I hope he continues, honestly, because the more people like him and the more people he can recruit to do things like that, the better for Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And even though he wants to take us interstellar from
fantastic movie.
Yeah, just to get back to the whole neuroplasticity and Neuralink and the whole idea behind it. Basically what you said, cords, like little tiny cords to different parts of your brain, zap it, have certain things happen, desirable outcomes, and it pretty much increases your neuroplasticity. And I think that's a very important thing. Not just like the Neuralink, but the whole idea behind the whole neuromodulation revolution, whatever you want to call it, with these devices is that there's a range of disorders and diseases out there right now that are difficult to treat at best. We just don't have the tools or capacity or knowledge even to help as much with diseases like schizophrenia, dementia, Alzheimer's, and then we're only recently getting better and better at treating people with stroke. It's tough because it's the brain is difficult to actually study. You can't really do a lot of human experiments because it's unethical.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have to find a way. And I think the more people growing up that want to say like, oh, I want to be a doctor, or I want to be an OT, or I want to be a clinical psychologist, but like the kind of person who's doing like innovative, cutting edge research, the better, because we need help understanding these topics. It wasn't until I probably am not gonna get the number right, but until like maybe 20 years ago that we didn't know until like 20, 30 years ago that adult brains can change in neuroplasticity. It used to be thought that it was fixed. Like once, you know, you couldn't like regrow connections or change connections.
This was literally what I was about to like start the topic on. This is what I wanted to bring up. Because that's what I was reading, and the word I was reading that they used most often was malleable.
Malleable, yeah.
And so that was surprising to me, because I was like, the odds of, or not the odds, but just I didn't realize that people could like regrow and re-establish connections in the brain. And that was interesting to me, as far as the fact that like, well, as you were talking at the very beginning, was like, why do older people suffer more from these neurological diseases or neurodegenerative diseases, I guess. Is diseases the right word? I don't know if disease is the right word. But it's like, if their brain is malleable, then why can't they just continue to function? Is it just because like repetition and practice that these certain neurons in their head don't get used very often, and so that's why they like just eventually dwindle and go away? Or is are there ways that older people can like continuously use parts of their brain where these diseases come from to keep them better like established and non-sick? Or
yeah, I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's a matter of they don't use you know, certain parts of their brain. And so it's like, okay, so when you're a kid, right, and you have a lot of neurons. I don't know how many kids have, but I know you're born with like 300 million or something like that.
I believe the average adult number is around like 86 billion, I believe.
Really?
Yeah, for neurons.
Wow, I was way off.
That's
Sorry.
No, it's huge, but I don't know what the when you're like born, what the difference is compared to when you're an adult.
Yeah, I mean, I don't either. I just I know that as you get older, so kids have tons. They have tons of connections, tons of neurons, right? Because they need the ability to adapt and learn tons of things. So, for instance, like when you're a kid, you can learn pretty much any language as long as it's spoken around you often. You kind of just learn it because your brain is just taking in information really easily and it processes it really well. And you know, you can learn it as long as you hear it a lot, right? That ability leaves as you get older. So you have what I think is called synaptic pruning, which is pretty much just like when the connections between neurons, they fade and they die, because your brain takes a lot of energy out of your, I think, metabolic energy. Like your brain takes about 40%, something like that. That's huge. That's a massive, you know, amount of energy that it's taking. And so like it needs to be efficient. And having like an excess of neurons is not efficient, especially if they're not being used. And so as you get older, like what you don't use, like let's say, you know, in the house, you're speaking like your parents and siblings are speaking English around you. You don't need to have the neurons to learn, you know, Spanish really easily. You don't, because you're not, that's not being taught, like spoken in the house, right? They get pruned. You can still learn Spanish. It just won't be as easy, you know. I'm sure you've talked to people who are your age, my age, trying to learn a new language. It's hard as fuck. Like,
yes.
Very difficult, you know.
Insanely difficult.
It's very difficult because, you know, you don't have that, you know, your brain isn't as malleable. You just don't learn as easily. You don't need to. Why would you? You're grown at this point. You're pretty much fixed in your ways. And so, like, as you get older, this pruning happens, and you have less neurons. You're, you know, less capable of learning. Okay, right? So let's say, you know, you're 40, 50. Let's say you're 50, you know, and maybe you haven't taken care of yourself so well for a while, and God forbid, you know, you have a stroke. You know what happens? Well, some of your neurons will die. And, you know, it was thought of before that once your neurons die, those functions die with them. You're not going to get those back. I believe it was stroke research that put to bed that belief. Because through treatment and, you know, kind of pretty much sort of like repetitive action. It was, let's say you had a stroke and you lost function of your right arm. So through repetitive treatment of simple tasks, maybe like trying to lift your best your ability, trying to lift, or like, just simple simple stuff. Through doing that for a long period of time, directly after the stroke, it was observed that the regions around the area that the neurons had died, they grow to make connections, right? And they take on the function of the dead neurons.
Okay.
So pretty much it's like they can learn to do what those neurons did. They're very smart. Like, yeah, for them, I guess it's not that hard. It just takes, a little longer than it would maybe, like, say, a child.
Right.
But very incredible, very impressive that that's even possible. So the idea behind this neuromodulation, technologies is, like I said, it's like a supplementary thing. It's like, so before you do your OT, your PT, or, speech, something like that, to regain these functions, you do a little bit of TMS before the session, zap, zap, zap. Okay, right? Your brain's prepped, and then you go into your exercises, or you do your exercises, zap, zap, zap. Your brain gets that extra push, and you're having I don't want to say accelerated, but the outcome will be hopefully preferred quicker.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the whole idea behind it.
It's like taking the tests. One of them, you don't have the answers in front of you. The other one you do. It's like, obviously, if you had the answers in front of you, you'd be able to write down very quickly. But the other one, you'd have to think and try to process and work it out yourself. So it just takes longer versus being simple and like laid out for you. That's kind of like what the difference is.
Yeah. No, definitely. I would say maybe more so like a cheat sheet. If you get a cheat sheet on your test, whereas not getting a cheat sheet, you just have to study by yourself, because you're kind of like blindly like, oh, I kind of know what to study, like I kind of don't. But if you have that cheat sheet, like, you know what to study, but then also you have like, these helpful tools, like while you're taking it, you don't have to try as hard.
Mm-hmm.
You should still, try hard because you try harder. And you have the cheat sheet, you'll probably get an A.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, unless you're taking physio and it's very difficult. No matter how much studying you do, you're gonna get a
yikes
or something like that. Like I don't know, but yeah, and one reason I'm advocating for these technologies is because it affects all of us. At the end of the day, like. I'm a big proponent of technology, like in healthcare. I'm a big proponent of technology in general. But I think the difference between technology in healthcare and technology in general is that, technology in general, it doesn't, it might, they might say, oh, we're seeking to improve on this thing, or, give you something you need or think you need, right? But like, not everybody needs like an iPhone. That's not, that kind of idea was ingrained into people. The marketing was great. They made it seem like, oh, you need an iPhone, and now everybody has an iPhone, and you feel left out if you don't. Okay, right? But like, if your father, mother, has a stroke, or if your child is born with autism, like, that's something that you're gonna wanna, do your best to help them out with. That's like a necessity. We need to help them. And so I think the better techniques we can, devise to help them, with their, impairment, that's just, it's going to be better overall for society in general. I was actually just reading about this article. I think it was Columbia University. I was looking at their OT program, and they were placing an emphasis, on, I think it was called TBI. So that's traumatic brain injury. And, one of the stories I was reading was about this college girl when she was in high school, or it might have been in college, either one. But basically, she was playing kickabout, having a soccer match, co-ed, real casual. And, she goes in for a slide tackle and she gets it right, gets the ball, but the person she tackled, they, fell and their knee landed on her head, immediately blacked out.
Ooh. Immediately concussion.
And so, from that point on, she's had problems. She had a traumatic brain injury, She suffered a very severe concussion. And yeah, this one hits probably even more personal to home with, you, me, the wider audience in general, anyone who plays sports or has fallen, like concussions are pretty prevalent in society, And so it's not just things like, things that are less frequent but still happen a lot, like autism or stroke, or in later years, neurons dying and you get Alzheimer's, dementia, concussions are pretty prevalent in young people, if you play any sport, if you're just clumsy, like you could fall and have a TBI, traumatic brain injury. And so, I was looking at, in this article it was talking about, it was OT centered, but it was talking about, how like changing her environment and changing her, patterns of behavior, what she does to, help her to, in essence, like her neuroplasticity to stay malleable so that, she's not getting headaches as often, so that she's able to concentrate and able to do the things she needs to do throughout the day. And that doesn't even have to be with any kind of neuromodulation. That can be as simple as just repetitive behaviors and, knowing what happens before a headache or, stuff like that. Just helping her to adapt to what has happened.
Do headaches come from lack of use of neurons, or what are you saying like a headache would come from as far as a post-concussion? Is it just damaged neurons?
Concussion, I can't really give super factual evidence about what happens to headaches. I'm actually not even sure why headaches occur, but as far as a concussion, I would go as far as to say that the blunt trauma is probably what has caused, the headache. Because in this girl's case, she had, she might have had internal bleeding. I think that and if you're having internal bleeding, like that's damage to your hardware.
Yes.
And so
that's just straight up bad.
That's just bad in general. Nobody would want internal bleeding. That just leads to problems, regardless. And so headaches in concussion sense, just blunt trauma. You've had damage to your hardware. Like if you crash your car, like it's gonna have some issues, like no matter, how many oil changes it gets.
Or not oil changes, Greg.
Or not oil changes, how many times you switch out the filter or put in that, what is it, Supreme gas? It's premium.
Premium.
Supreme. I think it's Supreme.
No, it probably just depends on the company.
Yeah. Anyway,
the top is like premium, I think.
Yeah, which I've started putting in my car because I know I'm trying to with things that are important. I'm trying not to be cheap anymore. Because I need my car to run for as long as possible. So putting good gas in it is key. And the engine will be more happy with me over the years if I put that premium in every time I fill up.
The extra 20 cents a gallon or whatever.
Literally, Tina was saying like it's literally like 30 cents. Like just do it. Fine. Yeah, and the same thing, the same type of thing that can be used for your body, like the reason people have these breakdowns is because, you're probably not treating your body right, and especially if you're genetically predisposed to
Mm.
have some of these things occur. If you have high blood pressure in the family, prone to, we haven't talked about this yet, but mental illness like depression, or, if you
Oh
have
yeah.
that runs in the family, like this is all neurons and how your neurons communicate, and if you have them or not, what's been pruned, what's still there. It's like if you treat your body in a way that's not good, you're going to have problems down the line. It's just a fact. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It's just you need to eat healthy, exercise, and even then, you still have breakdowns. As you get older, it doesn't really matter what you do, bad or good. Your body still breaks down. It's just, can you prolong that?
Right. How do you feel about supplements such as like just vitamins, basically? Because I know vitamins are surprisingly a large part of what keeps your body healthy, and so I don't know if I'm the biggest believer. Like, should I be taking a couple different vitamins a day just to keep my body more healthy, or is it better to keep it more natural and less pill reliant and stuff like that? But I don't know. It's just everyone has different opinions.
No, for sure, and I think it's tough to weed out I don't even know what the phrase is, the wheat from the chaff. I think it is. Yeah. Heard that from Jordan Peterson. God bless his soul.
The goat.
The goat. Nobody speak down on his name, please. You need people like him, Elon, that protect them at all costs.
Yes.
But no, it's definitely difficult to know what's good for you or not. I'm not a medical doctor, but I can give, what I do know. I was vegetarian for like pretty much half of this year. And when I first went vegetarian, I was getting headaches and I was feeling fatigue very often. And then, I found out that you're lacking certain vitamins that you don't get by not eating meat. So like I took those, I felt much better. And then maybe like 2 months ago, I started experiencing like pretty much, I would get like kind of like numbness in my fingers. It was kind of weirding me out. And so I was like, oh, what's going on? And I had moved back home after the pandemic first struck, so I wasn't in NorCal anymore. I wasn't on my same routine. I was in Southern California with my family, and maybe I wasn't eating the same way I was when I was at school. And so it might have been just that the natural foods that I was eating weren't enough, and then the supplements were kind of messing with that as well. And so I looked it up, and it seems like your body actually only takes in what it needs, and it expels the rest.
Right.
So as far as supplements, like I have a friend, she's really into nutrition. I would say definitely go to your doctor. If you can go to your physician and ask, hey, like I want to know what supplements can I take, what can I not take. I think that's probably the best idea. You can do your own research, but I would definitely at some point go to your doctor and let them know what you're doing. And I would say that it's not a bad idea. I mean, like, your body only, like I said, your body only takes what it needs. So excess isn't really, I don't think anything bad will happen depending on what supplement you're taking. I'm not saying go out and just, take a bunch of iron. Like, that would be good.
I know that's something my sisters have had a problem with, is iron deficiency. Yeah. So I know a couple of them take supplements, like pretty reoccurring, but I don't know the intricacies of their issues, or I don't even want to talk about it.
I don't want to get into
but I know it's there, and I know it happens to people, and
more so than women. I'm pretty sure women tend to be more iron deficient.
Yes. Has a lot to do with the system difference, that's for sure.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, and I don't know the specifics of it, but that's unfortunate.
Let's try to change topics here, because I know you said just a little bit before about like mental illnesses, such as depression, anxiety, things like that. Is this all like neuroplast. Oh my god, I can't even talk. Okay, we're restarting that. So as far as like mental illnesses and stuff, as you were touching on earlier, such as depression and anxiety, does this all stem from neuroplasticity as well, or is this a different
Um,
aspect of the brain and genetics?
well, you know, sorry, 1 second here. I need to go back to. I can't. Oh no, don't want to screen record. All right, taking a second video. Nice. Yeah, no, I mean, it's multiple factors at the end of the day. You know, genetics play a pretty big role. As far as neuroplasticity, I wouldn't say for depression or like anxiety, it's a matter of neuroplasticity. It could be. I don't think there's enough research right now to determine that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think that even though we can't determine if it is neuroplasticity, I think that you know, having certain regions of neurons connect or be inhibited certainly helps. So, for instance, in the case of anxiety, and I can speak to you know, children with autism because I work with them. Like your body, right? Anxiety is a matter of your fight or flight response, right? So when we
Mm-hmm.
were you know, more animals, you know, than we are human now, you know, hanging out with the other animals, the tigers and stuff like that, and being preyed upon.
What's up, Tiger? how,
Right?
how you doing?
You're a cheetah. Yeah, no, but when we were being preyed upon by animals, like we were pretty like fight or flight. That was active all the time, you know. If you're
Mm-hmm.
if you're about to get attacked, like you need to be able ready to go, okay? And so, anyone who knows a little bit about, just evolution and how it works is that, over time, like thousands of years, like you have these responses, they're ingrained, it's like a circuit, like it physically, like speaking, there's a circuit formed in your brain, okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that circuit is hard to turn off, your fight or flight, it is, I believe, housed in your, I want to say, like your, what's it called, reptilian brain. So you have different parts of the brain. You have like, the old brain, like the reptilian brain. Like, so if you're looking at like a picture of the brain, that's like the one that's like kind of like connected to the brain stem.
Mm-hmm.
It's the one with like the thinner looking ridges. It's the small one. Then you
Okay.
have uh, your like
Frontal
mammalian brain.
cortex. Yeah.
No, well, yeah, that too. But you're like mammalian brain, like the brain you're used to seeing with the big lumps. That's like your
Yes.
mammalian brain. That one has higher cognitive functions. It's not focused on things like fight or flight. It's focused on logical reasoning and stuff like that. Then you have your pretty much super brain, which is your cortex, like, and your cortex is involved with like very high level thinking. Whereas like your mammalian brain, like things like I don't know, like emotion, memory, probably stuff like that. I could be
Mm-hmm.
wrong, but the cortex for sure, high level thinking. So anyway, your mammalian brain, right, focused on more very basic things like fight or flight. That still comes into play in modern people. Okay, right. So anxiety, that is a pretty much your fight or flight in being activated too often. So you're having an overreaction to like something happening. So you're getting anxious. You have a test coming up, right? Let's say you have a test. I have the same test. I'm super nervous. You're not. Okay, right? My fight or flight is in overdrive. Okay, why is that? It could be a multitude of reasons, but the reason that's happening is neuron based. So if we can inhibit that in some way, stop getting those neurons to fire so often, then you can, theoretically reduce anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as depression, whatever neurotransmitters are affecting that, if you're able to, which are probably inhibited, if you're able to excite either those neurons or excite a different patch of neurons that people have that are not prone to depression, you can theoretically like reduce or get rid of depression. Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%.
Yes. So that's how it works in the case of mental illness. That's not so much physical and neurodegenerative like the other ones, and more so social in a way, more of the psyche and not as much of the, actual
Physical.
destruction of the hardware. Yeah. It's like the software, it's a problem with the software.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Pretty interesting. But yeah, it's always interesting how people, like, what triggers the anxiety, what triggers the depression, all the pinpoint accuracies of these diseases and sicknesses, like what causes it and why. I guess it is, evolutionary, as you were saying, but will it ever evolve to a point where these go away? But it's also like anxiety, especially anxiety, is more of a advantage in some cases. Like it's a evolutionary advantage to be afraid of something, because well, not exactly in like school cases. So as far as a test, that's just
that's
usually lack of preparedness or something like that. But
you just didn't study.
But like as far as being in the dark versus not being in the dark, like your senses are heightened in darker or nighttime. Like, oh, your video just went out.
Yeah, sorry, my battery is at 10%.
Ooh, we better hurry it up. But being in the dark, like some of your senses are heightened as far as like anxiety, and like your hearing is more amplified and things like that. But that's just
your sight gets more what's it called?
Protective, I guess.
Attuned to like light, I'm pretty sure. So like, whereas if you're in blinding light, you need to turn down the photoreceptors because you're gonna mess up your retina or whatever. But if you're in like the darkness and you see like a candle flicker from 100 meters, 200 meters, like you see it like that, like you see it very clear.
Yes. Yeah, it's just interesting. I don't know. It's cool stuff that I want to learn more about and research for sure. Hopefully there's more information out there eventually.
Oh, dude, they're doing research. They're doing research every day.
I know. And God, beautiful. Come out with something.
God, like, oh man, great. But yeah,
a lot of it's unpublicized right now. I bet there's a lot of like hypotheticals and unproven things that people are thinking, but they're not allowed to like share it with the public because it's just not proven or something like that. I don't know. That's just my guess.
There's a big difference between, I feel like if you're in one of the sciences, you know this. It's like there's a big difference between like what you see as the general public and the actual hard research that's being done. Very different, like, because in the hard research, it takes a while to really figure something out. Things are inherently pretty complicated, and so like, it takes a while to go to the moon. It doesn't just happen overnight.
Yeah.
And so like they're doing research every day, constantly coming up with things like, okay, maybe this is it, maybe this is it, and publication is a very strenuous process.
It's a long process. It's like anything political, it just takes forever to actually get done, and that's what people don't understand.
Yeah, like whereas if you're seeing things in magazines, like just let it be known, like before it made it to that magazine or before it was popular, like it had probably been like, honestly, maybe 5 to 10 years in the making. You got that final, oh, by the way, this cures this, like that 1 cent, this cures this, like it took so much time and effort to get that. Yes. So many people, like it's crazy. So
it's an extensive process, but it's also worth it to be accurate and sure of what they're doing and putting out there to people.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's like, it's kind of similar to like, people like to use this analogy of like brain surgery or training pilots, you're gonna want to have your pilots be good 100% of the time. You don't want some pilots to be good and some to be so-so, because those are people's lives on the line. I don't want to trust a pilot that kind of did well and only got B's, or kind of sort of can land the plane. No, because that's going to lead to more deaths and more probability of accidents happening. You need to be like 99.9% on that. Just like in the medical field, you need to be 99.9% sure that what you're doing is going to be beneficial and it works, and you've proven it, and there's been repetition of results.
It's the difference between a theory and a hypothesis.
Exactly.
It's insanely different. I use that word too much, but it's incredibly different, and it's still, both of them, theories and hypotheses aren't laws, but theories work and hypotheses are just a question.
Exactly. Yeah. And theories aren't laws, but they're
pretty darn close.
They're pretty damn close. It's the best you got until you have an updated one. They used to believe the Earth was flat. That wasn't a hypothesis. That wasn't even really a theory. That was accepted.
Yes.
Until someone said, "Hey, I think we revolve around the sun." He had to die, but it's okay because now we know we revolve around the sun. Don't know if it was Galileo first or Copernicus. I think I want to say it's Copernicus.
All right. So it seems like we're wrapping up the conversation a little bit. And so at the end of this podcast, we're creating a little segment for the people. And I think that it's going to be pretty funny, but it's interesting facts that we learned, or fun facts that we didn't know, that we're going to share with you. So I'll start it off. Did you know that the national animal of Scotland is a unicorn? I'm dead serious. I was I literally learned this yesterday. I was like, what? Because Scotland, you think of Nelly the Loch Ness Monster, and they love mythical creatures over there or whatever, but their actual national animal is a unicorn. Straight up. It's a unicorn. Look it up. Isn't that unbelievable?
Do it later, but that's ridiculous. They need to relax.
I thought that was the most interesting thing.
Let me see. I didn't look one up, but I think I know one off the top of my head.
Let's hear it.
So I learned, during my classes this year, that if you don't have saliva, you cannot taste things.
Really?
No, because I did a lab, and I had to dry out my tongue, and then I put I think it was some sugar or some salt on it. Couldn't taste it.
Whoa.
Ow. And then once my salivary gland started kicking in again, and they dissolved it, I could taste it. But until then, you could have put anything on my mouth. I would have no idea what it was.
That's so interesting. I didn't know that.
Right? Kind of wild.
I mean, now I'm thinking about it, it kind of makes sense. It totally makes sense. But I didn't ever think of that. Interesting. That's a pretty cool fact.
You better keep salivating.
Dude, imagine if you're just salivatory glands, whatever, just stopped working.
We'll say goodbye to flavor.
I don't know if that would be the worst thing in the world sometimes. You could eat a lot healthier.
I thought it would. Soren has a friend who his your nose is connected to your I don't know, your sense of taste, right? And so if your nose actually also isn't properly working, you can't taste either. And he has a friend who actually has nose impairment, and he can't taste. And he says that his friend pretty much eats shit all the time because he can't taste anything anyway. So he's I can just eat whatever I want, having McDonald's all the time, Burger King, pretty much Tina.
Dude, that's so true.
Pretty much Tina, except she has no impairment. She's just just one of a kind.
If I couldn't taste anything, I feel like I would eat a lot healthier because a lot of the bad taste or the unhealthy foods are the ones that taste the best, and that's why you eat them. You know,
True.
so I feel like it would be the other way around. Granted, he's probably saving money. You
That's what
know,
I thought. I feel like it is too. Like it's like, well, like I can't taste. Might as well not buy expensive food. Like
right, right,
whatever. Like you know.
yeah. Huh. It's a good one. I have another. I was just looking up some fun facts. This one was one that I didn't know, but I don't know if you will. So interesting fact number 2 from Eddie. Did you know that whales don't die of old age? They drown because they run out of energy to be able to resurface. And
Really?
so when they need to resurface, they can't. And so they don't ever get that oxygen.
Wow. I did not
Yeah.
know that.
And so what they do is they just sink, which is horrible. And their entire carcass is just, at the bottom of the ocean. And well, apparently it's like super nutritious, and a bunch of other like fish and creatures feed off of it. Yeah, it's the circle of life. But yeah, whales don't die of old age.
Oh wow, I didn't know. That's kind of. I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, I know. It's like, ugh. That's why I didn't want to have it be my first one because it's too depressing. But
yeah, it's kind of morbid.
yeah, literally.
Dude, wait, no. So actually, I was watching this YouTube video once, right? And humans. I don't apparently. It's kind of similar. Like we don't drown, but like they don't really know why you die. Like your functions stop working. Of course, but like the point in which like you don't technically always die of old age. You actually technically never die of old age. Most people die because something happens because they've lost function. Heart
Right.
attack, something like that. So there's this interesting idea, like what, like you were saying, like, oh, will we ever be able to cure these things? It's like, okay, like let's say we could cure heart attacks, right? Like let's say that was going to be the predominant, type of death for 50 million Americans. Okay, right? Do they just like what happens next for them? Like, like is it just the next thing down in line? Cancer? What if we cure cancer? Like, what will kill them? Because like you've seen these old people who are hundreds of years, like 100-year-olds, 101. Nothing's got them yet. Old age is not doing it. Like sure
Right.
they're like they can't. They're not as mobile and they look old.
They're getting old.
Yeah, they're getting old. But like they're still going.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So it's like
I don't know. Do you think like when people die in their sleep, is it could even have to do with the neurons that we're talking about? Does it just stop firing, or is it more probably sometimes like a heart problem and lack of oxygen in like blood flow?
I think that's honestly probably what happens.
Probably. So like old age isn't actually a killer, it's just the lack of like your body's
your body's doing it anymore. But it's not because you're like I mean, yes, well, like you're getting older, so the functions are not as good, but they're there. They're just not as good.
And at some point that's just gonna kill you.
Yeah, but not necessarily like old age. So I don't know. Who knows? In the future, maybe we'll start seeing people. I wouldn't want to be one of them, but living to like 200.
Yeah, I mean, the average age used to be what 30, 40 years old, and it's already 70. Like, I think it's over 70 now. It's probably like 74 and 77. I don't know why women live older, but that's just what happens. But or live longer, live older. I don't know. I don't know why I said that, but yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about. Maybe a discussion for next time.
We'd love to be on again. Oh man, yeah, but I'm running out of battery here. So
all right, well, we're at a pretty good end point for this this go. It's been nice having you on, and
being on.
I hope your work continues during this time, and that you continue to start talking to more people and having more like clients or whatever you want to call them, and that you just learn more before you start your next goal educationally as far as going to SoCal.
Yeah, dude, SoCal.
I hope that works for you. I really do. And
all you out there, USCOT, it's the dream, baby.
Hopefully it'll come true.
Hopefully.
That'd be awesome. But it's been a pleasure, and that's all I got. Yeah.
Virtual handshake. I fixed my ass went as if this is how I like. The business meeting, my ass is like, yeah, good talk.
Yeah, it's been a fun experience.
Real,
Bush Network episode number 1 is coming to an official conclusion, and to everyone out there, this has been a dream for about a year.
A year,
Joe. Since I started listening to Joe Rogan, his podcast has changed my life. Honestly, it's such a daily, natural discussion just about him and his guests. They just talk about whatever, and I think talking about whatever unbiased, and I don't know. I guess that's the way I want to put it. Is just they just come and speak their mind, and they don't really care what other people
Free
think.
Speech, baby, bro. Keep it alive. Free speech. Yeah. Don't ever let it die. Jordan Peterson. Because once free speech is gone, bro, we're basically living in a communist society. We're living in North Korea.
Yep.
And you don't want to have that happen, especially not as an American. We're used to being able to speak our minds, You take the people out there protesting, they should be allowed to do that. They're allowed to do that. You do that somewhere in like North Korea, it's game over, despite
we're known for being land of the free, home of the brave. Like that's our slogan.
Keep it alive.
Yep. But times are changing.
They are indeed. But that's the topic for another day.
Yes. All right.
Bush.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been real.
See ya.